Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. Viewers of Gunjur TV Online, welcome to another episode of Salaji, Turning Point for the people of Combo. Today, our guest will be nobody but Dr. Ismaila Ceesay of Citizens Alliance, and he will be discussing COVID-19 and its effects on democratic reforms. Welcome, Dr. Conteh.
Thank you.
And welcome, Dave Manneh.
Thank you.
Dave, doctor will be a little bit late, maybe about 10 minutes. He says he's putting kids to bed, which is very much understandable. So basically, yeah, before he come, I'm going to bore you with the COVID numbers.
Yes, okay.
The statistic, which is still indicating Gambia is still very, very much behind the curve. You know, we have a positivity rate of 34%, which is been like that for like 3 weeks now, and death rate 3.2, just a slightest decrease by 0.2, and recovery rate also just 35%. It's just not good enough. And overall positivity rate of 22% is probably one of the worst in the world. So basically, I'm going to give you the overall COVID statistic before we start. Before Dr. Ceesay come, actually. As you all know, COVID announced itself to the world in December 2019 from Hubei provinces in China. And so far, since this virus appear with us, 25,508,258 people are infected, on 852,390 deaths so far. And the good news about COVID, it's not a death sentence. Actually, you can have a COVID and your chances of surviving is about 80%. So right now, 17,805,000 221 people recovered from COVID. So as I always remind our viewers, these recovered population are going to be very, very important in our fight against COVID-19, because how the virus affected, that is general pathology of the virus, how we build immunity against it, and how it kills us will come mainly from those who died and also these recovered populations. And also the recovered population have a potential to be used as a therapy, as an intervention to cure people with COVID-19. If you are infected with a virus or bacteria, any kind of pathogens, and you recovered, that means you develop you are immune to it. In layman term, you are resistant to it. That resistance is given by a specially programmed protein called immunoglobulins. These immunoglobulins, once you develop them against a particular virus or a bacteria, they will stay. The body will keep them. In case in future, if you are infected with the same kind of virus, they will just jump, very, very quickly this time and multiply and mop up the virus. So technically, somebody who recovered from the virus, if you should take their blood and spin it, take the liquid component and transfer it or transfuse into the blood of people who are currently infected with COVID, those specially programmed proteins should go in there and mop up the virus and clear it. Already, America sanctioned it last week, even though their main infectious control agent, Dr. Fauci, said there is not enough data to use it because of safety concerns. But as you know, this is an election year in the US, so Donald Trump is going to use anything that will boost his chances of re-election. He might even rush the vaccination so that he can use it as an election tool. Currently 6,850,000 847 people are infected with COVID, that's active infections, and 6,789,731 in mild condition. Mild condition that include asymptomatic patients as well, and also people with mild symptoms of COVID, which include but not limited to fever, body temperature, and also persistent cough, and also loss of sense of smell and taste, and also on rare occasions what they call COVID toes. You develop a scratch on your toe, and if you scratch it, it develops into an open wound. And also in a very rare circumstances, we have what you call COVID rash tongue. Your tongue is covered with red rashes. Currently, 61,116 people are in critical condition, and in Gambia, we have 7 which need oxygen support. You know, these critically ill patients are the ones that took up hospitals beds, and they mainly not only hospitalization, but they need intensive care support, because as we know, the main target of COVID is our respiratory tracts. If we get to your upper respiratory tract, that's your eyes, nose, and mouth. It goes down, travel to your lungs, and once in the lungs, the body will mount a massive challenge to mop up or to clear the virus. So that's massive challenge, you know, can end up the body actually turning on itself, what we call cytokines storm, because for the immune systems to be worked to put in place, and their work, it all depends on cytokines. These are chemical molecules of the immune system. But again, if the body produce it in an excessive amount, it can overcome the system, and it can kill you. So basically, the virus in itself actually kills, but also because of the action of the virus, the body can turn up on itself and kill. So that's the nasty thing about COVID. So past 24 hours, we have 129,000 new cases, 423, and 2,242 dead as a result of COVID. Countries very close to the Gambia, I'm going to give you numbers, but these are the numbers that guide me through, and these are the numbers I made my prediction from. Even when the numbers for Gambia are very, very stable, I know they're going to continue to increase, because as long as we have numbers there, our borders are very, very porous in Africa. There's very little control. People are going to move around and transport this virus, and that's exactly what happened. So Ivory Coast is still leading the way in our part of the world. They have registered so far 17,948 cases. And Senegal so far 13,611 cases. And Guinea-Conakry 9,371, and Gambia 2,963, and 98 new cases past 24 hours. Senegal actually have 55. So Mali have 2,776, and past 24 hours they recorded only 3 cases. Mauritania so far recorded 7,016 cases. No new cases. Well, their record for the past 24 hours are not yet in. Guinea-Bissau so far 2,205, and past 24 hours record is also not in, and that of Sierra Leone as well, who recorded 2,022 cases. Burkina Faso so far recorded 1,368, and past 24 hours they recorded 11 new cases. And Liberia, in our part of the world, which is still small, is 1,304. So Dave, that's what I got for the daily COVID-19 update, and you might take up from there until Dr. joins in. Yeah, so as usual, I will let you guys introduce yourself before Dr. come, and we can discuss about the Gambia numbers and the situation in the Gambia before Dr. take over. Prof. Conteh, you first.
Well, hey, I'm Dr. Conteh. I am, again, a Banka from Faraba, born in Piran Berending, here in the United States. I teach accounting and finance. And I really appreciate us coming together here to talk about this COVID, because COVID doesn't know tribe, doesn't know race, doesn't know political affiliation, doesn't know anything about your educational status. So this is something that we all have to come together to find a solution to this pandemic.
Okay, thank you very much, Prof. Conteh. Dave, before your dad is visible, you want to introduce yourself to the viewers?
Yeah, hello everybody. DF Manneh from Beaufort. Like Dr. Conteh said, I'm also a very Kombonka. I count myself as a Bakawonka, as a Yundumuka. Yeah, I'm just
Yeah,
a
yeah.
Kombonka, really. Yeah. But to be honest, today I was gonna be actually on the technical side today, so I might drop off very very soon
Yeah, that's fine.
if need be. Okay. So I'm here. Yeah. So
Yeah, thank you very much. So, you all hear the COVID numbers from the Gambia. We have 98 new cases, and out of 199 tests, that is 34% positivity rate. And it's been like that. So basically, what that indicates, there are a lot of COVID cases in the Gambia. Just happened that we are not doing enough tests, because 199, when you should be doing at least 1,000, 1,500. That's the recommended WHO numbers. Gambia should be testing 40,000 every month, but 199 only, and out of that you have 68 positive cases. That is a positivity rate of 34%. So that means we are far from getting to the summit, much more leveling it off and coming down. So Dave Foss, what's your take on this?
yeah, it's quite unfortunate, but I mean, it's not something we shouldn't be expected. I mean, this is nothing unexpected really, because we didn't think the guys were prepared. I mean, the figures they're giving us, I think, is a cause for concern really, because I don't think they're doing enough tests. Number one, and I don't think the test. I don't think it's broad enough. I think most of the tests just seem to be centered around the combo. That seems to be the situation in the Gambia anyway. So I think that should be a cause for concern. So you can't trust the figures. Um, that doesn't mean like we have been naturally cynical. We can be cynical when it comes to the Gambia administration, but I don't think we have been cynical. I think we've actually been very charitable. I think it's a lot. Yeah, they leave a lot to be desired, really, to be honest. Um, the figures don't look right. They're not doing enough testing. I was on another forum today, and that was a complaint. Everybody saying they're not doing enough testing. Number one, and number two, we don't think these figures are right. So yeah, it's a cause for concern. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Okay, the main man himself is here, Dr. Ismaila Ceesay. Welcome to Gunjur TV online, on Gunjur Online TV. As you will be discussing a lot of noise there.
From my end.
Okay. That is COVID-19 and its effects on democratic reforms. But normally how we do it, I will come every session, give daily COVID-19 updates. Then we will go whatever topic we have. But this particular platform, this particular program was inspired by the events in Sukuta a couple of months ago, when physical planning turned up with demolition squad to demolish the properties of some Sukuta indigenes, but some structures continue to stand. So we feel that as Kombonkas, we need to come together and speak one language, and it might be challenging the unfair or this discriminatory land act. So that's the story behind this particular platform. But then COVID numbers start spiking. We say, no, it will be insensitive, to continue to talk about lands when Gambians are dying in their numbers. So we modify the topics to put COVID at the center of every topic we discuss here in recent. And thank you very much. You give us this COVID-19 and its effects on democratic reforms. And as one of the boarding leaders with leadership ambition, so we allow you to introduce yourself generously so we can wait. generously, and also you tell us why these particular topics.
Hello, good
Welcome.
evening.
Hello.
Thank you.
Am I audible?
Yeah, very audible. Yeah.
I'd like to first of all extend my gratitude and my appreciation to the panelists, the host. I'm not sure who's hosting the program. It's Ahmed, you are.
I'm hosting it. In fact, what I will do, because we introduce ourselves before you come, so I will go back to Dr. Conteh and Dave to introduce themselves again, please. To who is who? Doctor, can you go first?
Oh yeah, you people from Brufut and if you call yourself a Brufut person, then you must come from Brikama, right?
Yeah.
And then we have someone from Gujura who I believe from Sukuta, right?
No.
Well, I'm excited here because Dr. Conteh's mother is Conteh. Dr. Ceesay's mother is Conteh. So,
Okay, but
So you are my uncle.
so Mr. Manneh, if you say your dad, I say my nephew. How about that?
Yeah, there you go.
That's
No
good.
problem.
Yeah, because Banka will be joining us later. Inshallah.
But they're gonna be three Kabunkas here, and they are doing a wonderful job, right? Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
thank you.
I'm Dr. Conteh. I was born in Pirang, Berending. My father was from Farawabanta, and I'm here in the United States. I've been here for years. I teach accounting and finance, and we've been talking about issues that we face in Combo. And this is something that I think is dear to each and every one of us. Looking at the coastal Combo is very frightening that the numbers are escalating. And today, when I looked at the report in the newspaper, said that they didn't report any deaths. And I say, oh my God, that's not true. Because most of the people who die as Muslims, they bury within 4, 5, 6 hours. And most of people who die probably in the provinces, they've not been tested. So, but again, like I've been saying, is that this COVID has no political boundary, no economic boundary. We have lost a lot of human talent, human capital, whether religious leaders down to the common person. And I'm seeing also young people dying. So I think collectively we have to come together to solve a problem. This is not the time to blame the government. So again, we are Gambians, but I also wish the government would reach out to our Gambian doctors, medical doctors who are willing to come to help. So as we say here in America, no one should be proud to beg. If you need assistance, please reach out. So that's all I can say right now.
Yeah, thank you. Dave, introduce yourself to viewers of Good News Online TV and also to our good doctor, Dr.
Hello,
Ceesay.
everybody. Hello, people in Gambia and everywhere. And Dr. Ceesay, thank you so much. It's a pleasure to have you here. We're really, really honored to have you here today. I'm from Brufut. I'm DF Manneh. I do basically come on here to do some social commentary. Like Ahmed said earlier on, introduced earlier on, this platform came into being on the back of this Alaji land issue. But obviously, when the COVID-19 started spiking in the Gambia, we thought it necessary that our discussion should center more around COVID. I mean, obviously, it's a social issue, it's a health issue, it's a medical issue, but it's also a social issue. So everything centers around health and social issues, so we can discuss them. So that's why we are here. We are not specialists at all. We are more specialists in IT, but we come here to do some social commentary. That's about it, really. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dave. So, Doctor Ita Muritasu, welcome.
Well, Alabarka, Mbalme Kontona.
Thank you.
I'm greeting all the viewers out there, both at home and in the diaspora. And I'm also greeting my co-panelists, Dr. Conteh. This is the first time I'm seeing his face though, apart from the fact that I've seen him on his pictures on social media, but we've been in touch quite a while ago. We've discussed a lot, and it's my uncle. Dave, thank you, and Ahmed, thank you for inviting me to this show. I think it's a very important show. This is what Gambia needs now. I'm not seeing you guys. Are you seeing me? It seems like okay. Now I'm seeing you. Yeah, it's a very important show. The land issue is crucial. In fact, it's I'm not sure whether we can securitize it. Some scholars will want to securitize the land issue. That it's got some security implications. I think it has gone beyond politicization to securitization. So I think it's important that you have this platform where you don't only discuss the problem, the root cause of the problem, but also finding solutions to the land issue. Well, my name is Ismaila Ceesay. I'm born and bred in Brikama, Kombo, obviously the capital city of Kombo. I know you will appreciate that. And
No
I did my
problem with that.
school in Brikama,
Yeah.
primary school, up till primary 6. I had difficulties getting into high school because of discrimination. I didn't have anybody to help me get into the school I wanted to get into. That is either Muslim High or St. Augustine's or St. Peter's or Gambia High. And the other option was for me to go to Brikama Technical Secondary School. And I didn't want that because at that time, I was up to Form 4. I wanted to go to a school where I can go to Form 5. And because of that lack of help to get into high school, I quit school at that time. I kind of stayed at home for 1 year, and then my mom decided to take me to Sierra Leone to further my education. As I did my high schooling in Sierra Leone Albert Academy High School. So upon completion, I went back to the Gambia. It was just at the heydays of the military junta in '95 when I finished high school in Freetown. So when I came back to the Gambia, also difficult to get a job. The option was for me to join the army. In fact, I took all the forms, did all the necessary processes, but then fortunately or unfortunately, I had a chance to go to Sweden at that time. I think at that time, the nerve syndrome was at its height in the Gambia. Every young man wanted to go to Sweden or Germany or the UK or the US. So I went to Sweden, and then I lived in Sweden for many, many years. I did my undergraduate degree in political science in Sweden. I was very engaged in Sweden socially, and at some point I was president of the Gambian Association in Stockholm. At some point I also decided that, look, I want to go home because if my knowledge cannot benefit my society, my country, then it might as well be worthless. So, and I started working on those plans, and I realized that for me to go home back to the Gambia to have an impact, I needed either wealth or knowledge. And because I couldn't get the wealth to go and invest, I said, well, let me get the knowledge and go and invest the knowledge back home. It might even be more sustainable. Then I did my master's at Edinburgh University, went back to the Gambia in 2009. And at that time, we all know what was happening at that time. Nobody who wanted to really survive would want to get their government. So I decided to go to the university to shape young minds and share my knowledge there. I taught at the university for 3 years, and in 2012, I decided to come and do my PhD in Edinburgh. I finished in 2016, and I went back home to the Gambia. And coincidentally, 2016 was when there was a change of government. So I went back home and then joined the Free. And so been teaching at UTG for almost close to 11 years, obviously. Very passionate about Gambia, very passionate about the potential of Gambia to make it, and very disheartened and frustrated that despite all the potentials we have as a country, despite the goodwill, international goodwill, despite the resource, the industriousness of our citizens, we are still where we are today, trying to grapple with some of the most basic problems of society. Countries have moved, they've left those problems behind. We are still grappling with those problems. And I think it also, the optimistic side of it is that when I see young people like us, like me, you, Dave, Ahmed, Dr. Lamine, and all of the young people, both in the diaspora and the Gambia, who are hungry for change, who don't want to wait for change to come. We want to go and get it now and grab it and demand it. I think that is that gives me hope that at least the Gambia has a future. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Doctor. Before you go into your topic, I will beg you, if you cast a spell on one of the Brufudungas not to get in, please take it off, because Banka has been struggling to get in. He just texts me that he's having problem with his network. He's driving. So yeah, but if kids out there who are listening to your story, because we see the final product, Dr. Ceesay, yeah, but some of the things you mentioned here, I are very, very familiar at our age. struggle to go to your desired high school. Even if you go to high school, keeping in high school because of financial troubles and all that, and the nerve syndrome. So it's all the same. So I hope kids out there watching this program, this should be an inspiration for you, that you cannot use your current circumstances, to just pack it up. Never give up in life. So look at how it turned out to be. So, Doctor, first, why this topic? Why COVID-19 and its effects on democratic reforms? Why do you use this?
Well, I think COVID-19 is a big thing. It took everybody by surprise. But some governments, like the Gambia government, really had the opportunity to prove to the world that we could fight COVID-19 in our own way. When it started in Wuhan in 2019, I think it was then that any serious government would have just taken action to know that it was just going to be a matter of when and not if that it will arrive the shores of the Gambia. I think it was then that the government should have come up with a proper strategy by exploring what are the resources that we have to fight the virus. What are the legal resources to fight the virus? What are the who are our key epidemiologists, both at home and abroad? Who are our social scientists? Who are our economists? So that we don't only find a strategy to contain the virus from not entering our borders, even if it enters, to make sure the impact is minimized, but also the controlling the effects or the impacts of the virus. But our government really failed woefully. They failed to show leadership at a time when it was really needed. So, but then COVID-19, obviously, we can discuss at some point, perhaps maybe government's response, the way they responded, why they failed. In fact, they failed in every aspect. They failed in containing the virus, one, but they also failed in coming up with key strategies to mitigate the impact of the virus, both the social impacts, the economic impacts, impacts on education, and also impact on our democratic reforms. Because there's no proper planning, I haven't seen any strategy. The only strategic document I've seen from the government is how to contain the virus. I haven't seen any strategy, comprehensive strategy, that really comes up with measures to say how do we mitigate the impact, the economic impact of the virus, so that small businesses can still survive after COVID-19, so that small businesses can recover post-COVID-19, so that vulnerable families, widows, poor people, handicaps, people with disabilities can also survive within this whole COVID-19. There is no proper strategy. And there is no strategy in terms of how to reorganize society. Because obviously COVID-19 has to do with a virus. That's the spread by human beings. So that one of the measures that are taken by governments is social distancing as well, and so on and so forth. How do we reorganize society? Considering the fact, the way we live in the Gambia, in the markets, in the car parks, in the cars. How do you reorganize in the mosques? We are very religious people. How do you reorganize society so that the markets can function without this disease being spread there? Mosques can go on and so forth. That was nothing. Education, obviously. We saw how schools were forced to close down. In fact, we came late. We closed down very late. Other countries have started to close down their schools. So it was clear that at some point, we are also going to close down our schools. What was the strategy to ensure that education was not affected? But most importantly, we have to understand Gambia is in a transition, a democratic transition. And in 2016, we went to the polls, we voted out a dictator, and we ushered in a new era of democracy and the rule of law. And because of that, the whole transitional justice process had some key elements. One was the Truth Reconciliation Commission. Two was the Commission of Inquiries. And then we had the Constitutional Review Commission, and also the security sector reforms. So now having all these things happening within the context of a pandemic, I thought there should have been a strategy from government to ensure that these reforms are not stalled, that these reforms can still be pursued within the context of COVID-19. But since the COVID-19 started, I haven't seen any strategy, anything, any discussion from government or from civil society, in fact, to talk about how can we really still pursue our democratic reforms? How can we still continue the whole transition process within the context of COVID-19? Because it has to do with resources. Because when COVID-19 came, obviously, resources have to be rediverted and repurposed to fight COVID-19. How was that going to affect the Constitutional Review Commission? How is it going to affect our electoral timetable? will we still be able to have elections in 2021? If not, if yes, how? What is the strategy? Can we still have the referendum before the elections? What is the strategy? So all these things were missing in the political discourse. And I thought it's very important for us to discuss this so that we can also find ways to say, look, yes, there's COVID-19. It's a pandemic. It is deadly. But then again, we cannot let life has to continue at some point. What are the strategies? What are the measures that can we put in place to ensure that we pursue our democratic reforms? The security reform still goes ahead. The democratic reforms like the Constitutional Review Commission, the TRRC can still go ahead within the context of COVID-19. But as it is now, the TRRC is halted. Even those who are within the TRRC are disillusioned with the whole process. And I'm not surprised why Banka quit, because he knew this whole thing was going to unravel on his head. The Constitutional Review Commission, the Constitutional Review process, we don't know what's happening. It was gazetted till end of August. We are end of August. I'm not seeing any movement to see whether Parliament will sit to do the first reading. We don't know what's happening. The security sector reforms, crucial. We saw what happened in Mali recently last week. And partly that has to do with a very unprofessional and disorganized security force. And I think Gambia and Mali share some things in common. So therefore, it was crucial that we do a proper security sector reform without delay. So I think it was important that we discuss all these things within the context of COVID-19. That's why I suggested this topic. Ahmed.
Wow, that's a comprehensive answer. That might even exhaust our time if we want to discuss all of it. But still, these are some of the things definitely Gambia we should be talking about right now. We cannot wait until this virus goes. In fact, this virus is going to be with us for a foreseeable future. As you say, how we can live with it should be the target for any responsible government. Dave, you hear that introduction from Dr. Ceesay. What's your take on that? The issues which are very, very pertinent, but right now they are all been solved, because we have to deal with COVID, and COVID is not going anytime soon.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Ceesay. I think that was very well put, very eloquent as always. I think it's the discussion we had here. I mean, over the past few weeks, our discussion always basically centers on the. I know some people are not very keen for us to say this because they think, I think they are argument, and I do understand where they're coming from, that we shouldn't politicize this, but I don't think we can move away from politics. We cannot move away from that the government back home really didn't do their homework. I think they were very, very unprepared. I mean, coming from like let's say a socio-technological angle, if that's gonna be the perspectives through which I have to view this whole situation, I was just very, very shocked that there was not much interagency collaboration. I mean, places like in the UK, I mean, this is an advanced economy. You had interagency collaborations. We had COBRA, and they had other such organizations whereby you have multidisciplinary what they call professionals coming from multiple disciplines, combine them together, their resources, their thinking, to say that because this COVID-19 is going to be it's going to be a real challenge on our society, on our whole way of life. So every facet of our life is going to be affected. So we need to think we need to think that way. I didn't see that coming in the Gambia. I didn't see it. I followed it. I didn't see anything there. And then, I mean, Dr. Ceesay was on the ground, so he's a witness to it. I mean, he lives with this every day. I mean, we are across the sea. I mean, far away from them. Obviously, we are on the phone with them every day, but we are not on the ground. He was there, and you can see he's lamenting. His lamentation is very, very genuine. I think the borough government definitely failed the people. We're not going to politicize this again, Dr. Conteh. I'm really sorry. I mean, we should all come together, but I think there are some things we really shouldn't just push off under the rug and move on, because we are afraid that our conversation might become party political. I don't think it is party political. I think the Gambian problems. I mean, Dr. Ceesay is a political scientist here, obviously. I think our problem is institutional. I mean, we don't have the proper structures in place. I always say that, even as a layman, that until we can fix these fundamentals in the Gambia, we're going nowhere. That's just my belief. That's my layman's belief. really. So it all goes back to this, what Dr. Sita is saying, it all goes back to this poor governance or this lack of institutions. It's very, very bad. It's very detrimental to our people. And it requires a change of thinking, a perspectives on how we think. Um, it's worrying for me. It's worrying for me because Gambia is a very poor country economically. We are very, very poor. And we lack the structures. I mean, you go to Gambia, the place is chaotic. You go to Serekunda, you see thousands or tens of thousands of people. I mean, nobody's actually doing social distancing. They don't even practice social distancing. I mean, the government also needs to do his job, and we know they have not done it properly. That's a fact. We can never get away from that. But I don't think the people too are taking responsibility for their own safety and health. So that's another component. But then it all goes back to this lack of institutions. Of course, there's got to be willingness in the people, amongst ourselves, to say, look, something is happening here. We need to change our lifestyle. We need to change how we interact. We need to change how we socialize. We actually need to change our thinking. But then obviously that's why we have government, so that they can lead the people. They can govern the people. They can implement the structures. They can implement institutions. They can implement the mechanisms. These are all missing ingredients in the Gambia, like Dr. Ceesay so eloquently pointed out. So where we go from here, like he's saying, that's the problem, because we there was a problem with the whole budding democracy, number one, anyway. I mean, we had a whole lot of hope, but the hope has been dashed. So now we got the COVID-19. What does it do to us? What does it do to this budding democracy we think we have in the Gambia? Right now, it has a lot to be decided. It has a lot to be decided what we have in the Gambia. But what's the effect? What's the effect in 2021? We're meant to have an election. What's going to happen? Are we still going to have an election? What mechanisms are in place to facilitate these elections? He's not seen it. He's in the Gambia. He's an academic. He has not seen any paperwork from them. He has not seen any documentation. Nothing. No policy papers. So we just grow up in the dark. I mean, like we just go from. It's just like people without we just rudderless, a country leaderless and rudderless. That's where the Gambia is right now. That's why it's really, really worrying. I mean, even organized states, I mean, developed states, economically powerful states are struggling with COVID-19. But we come from a place which is very, very poor economically. We have no structures. We have no institutions. So it's going to be devastating on us. That's a concern. It gives me sleepless nights. Really, it does. So yes, Dr. Ceesay, you got to keep hammering your message back home. People are listening. We are listening. We do feel helpless, but I think you just stay on message. Stay on message and keep hammering. And hopefully these guys, the powers that be, probably they'll have an awakening very soon before it's too late. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Before I let Doctor in again to continue to actually present the way he want to present this topic, I will go to Dr. Conteh. But before then, few things. Dave, feel free to talk about politics. What people will think. Right now, one of our biggest problem is politics. It's all politically related. Yes. So we cannot say, people might think we are politicized. Yeah, we have to. Because these issues have to be talked about. You have an issue, you have to talk around it, if to find a solution. But if you all say, if I said it, they will think I'm being political, it's not going to be solved. And Gambia, we are at crossroad. We just cannot mess up again. 2021 to me is just beyond party politics. In fact, we have to get it right, or we might as well, sign off to Senegal. So, Dr. Conteh, what do you have? To add to what Dr. just said, and also Dave.
Well, as an educator, I want to commend Dr. Ceesay for talking about his journey as a youngster graduating from primary school and unable to attend school in the Gambia. But the mother was very smart enough to take the child to Sierra Leone, and look what we have. And I have always been saying that about the Gambia, that even during our time in most primary schools, you may only have one or two people passing the common entrance examination. So the British system of education that we have adopted in the Gambia actually disqualifies a lot of potential in our country. Because some people may face what we call psychological problems. They may come from a family who may have been divorced. And it could also be traumatic situations where kids may not be able to pass the common entrance examination. And of course, when you talk about kids who probably live further away from their primary schools and they had to go and take the common entrance examination, by the time they get to the venue, they've already lost 10, 20%. And we have been doing this system of elimination in our country. And to me, it has done something terrible to our human capital development. And I want to commend his mother for having the foresight. And actually, I'm torn down here on this because I met his father. And most people who graduated from high school, even junior secondary school, had to go, when they were looking for a job at Forest, they had to go to Caesar Forest. And to see his son a few years later on struggling to even get admission to a school, I think is sad. So this is the Gambia. And I've always been saying to people, that I don't care what life you enjoy today. I want you to have a safety net. But unfortunately for our people, sometimes I think greed takes precedence. And also I am very independent because I intend to have a rally of the independence in the Gambia. I believe that we need political education in our country, that you can belong to any political party and disagree even with your spouse or child in terms of who you're going to support. But again, when we talk about the Gambia, we are constrained because 40% of Gambia's budget is aid. And I've been saying this even to the Ministry of Finance and Economic Affairs, that you cannot record grant money that is not legally binding. And that's the problem we have in the Gambia. Every so often when they set up their budget, grants that have been promised, they record them as revenue. I say in accounting, we believe in conservatism. So you cannot record revenue that has not been realized. And it's not even measurable. So again, if Western countries, countries that have wealth, are struggling to meet budget lines, universities laying off, and other countries, even state governments, are laying off employees, what's going to happen to Gambia, particularly when we know that 40% of our appropriated revenue comes from where? From overseas. And again, the Gambia Revenue Authority that I've always been chastising, sometimes when we blame the government, I think we have to blame the citizens of our country. As an independent, I do believe that the opposition also has failed because some people have used this pandemic as a political capital. And it's very sad that every single day you see young people, old people, human capital dying, and people tend to capitalize on that. But again, when we talk about the effect of pandemic, I think there are 4 variables that we need to take a look at, and they are all Ds. There are 5 of them. We tend to look at what we call decentralization. We have failed when it comes to decentralization. We should empower the local governments to take care of their initiatives. We don't have that. The decision is made where? At the central government. So how can you be able to mobilize people to fight this horrific virus that is killing our people domestically and globally? So we have failed in terms of decentralization because everything is part of what? Centralized government. So any decision making is from the state house. The second one here is democracy. Yeah, but how can we have democracy when we don't have political education? Nowadays, when you criticize someone and someone part of that political party, they will insult you. They try to even shame you. So I think, in my view, we need political education. So if we blame the government, I also do believe that we need to blame our folks. And, the entrepreneurial activity is the backbone of an economy. In the Gambia, I don't have statistics here, but I do believe that maybe 75% of Gambians employees are employed in the public sector, in the government, and you look at all these state-owned enterprises, people are crying about NAWIC not providing services. I said NAWIC cannot provide services because NAWIC's total liability of 11 billion is more than the 7 billion of assets. So therefore, NAWIC actually has a deficit in retained earnings. And in my view, as an accountant, we say NAWIC has a going concern because NAWIC will not be able to obtain credit to buy heavy fuel. Another area that I want to talk about when you talk about this government, I would say that this is joint responsibility. Demand. So you look at about the average entrepreneur that's in the Gambia, and they have supplies. How are they going to be able to sell their products when we have lockdown and we don't have any planning system? And then again, the interference of people saying that "Nyimu kombo sasalti," because we heard that, and some people saying that diasporans are bringing such things to us. So I do believe that what is going to happen to the entrepreneurial creativity in our country is going to diminish because of this, because the government doesn't have the foresight. Some of the people in the opposition tend to blame the government for everything. This is joint collective responsibility. Another area I would like to talk about is distribution system. The government said something that I thought I was dumbfounded. When they said that you can drive your vehicle at a certain time, and then you're going to stop. And I say, wait a minute. How about if someone has heavy products that they're going to deliver to Basse, which I do believe that Basse should be turned to almost the same as Banjul, because if we can have products going to Basse, we can be re-exporting our goods to neighboring countries and so forth. Another area that I want to tell you, brothers and sisters, this is a sad day for us. And I predict, because I looked at the capital expenditure, the current expenditure today, I posted on Facebook, that the government, the first 6 months of 2020, the current expenditure increased by 31.2%. Who in their clear mind would even think of increasing your current expenditure when you are facing pandemic? And the sad thing, I'm going to end, a lot of you may not know. They said that our capital expenditure decreased. So the fixed assets that you are using to generate revenue for you, to improve creativity in our country, you decrease in that. But the current expenditure that you have, so which means that, oh my God, what's happening in the Gambia is that we are spending more than we really need to. I'm appealing to you as an independent. I will continue to be independent because I think Gambia needs an independent mind. And I can tell you one thing, if Halifa Saleh had been selected to be the presidential candidate and had been in the State House today, I don't think we will have the problems that we encounter today, particularly with the level of corruption that we have in the Gambia. I rest my case.
Yeah, thank you very much, Dr.
Yeah, Dr. Ceesay.
Yeah, Dr. Ceesay, the floor is yours to present to us COVID-19 and its impact and its effects on democratic reforms. You present it the way you like, then at the end we can have a discussion.
Yeah, so basically, thank you very much. Thank you, Dave, and thank you, Doc, for that introduction. I think, Ahmed, you said something very salient, that we cannot really keep away from discussing politics, because today, if there is a time when talking politics, it's important, it is now, I think, because it has an impact in everything that we do. Politics decides who dies because of COVID-19 and who survives because of COVID-19. I think let's call a spade a spade. This government failed dismally. It's not about criticizing this government, it's about holding them accountable, that they've been elected to perform a duty. And part of that duty is, if there's a pandemic, they should respond to this pandemic and make sure they save lives and livelihoods of Gambians. But they have failed. I mean, in every aspect. Look at the way they dealt with the quarantine. Gambia was the only country, despite our resources, allowing people to come to the country and taking up the expensive hotels in the name of quarantine. Which country does that? Even the UK doesn't do that. I mean, rich countries don't do that. And that came about because of one of the ministers who owns hotels and whose friends are hoteliers, gave them the idea that, look, why don't we use hotels so that they can make money because the tourist season has failed the hotels. Just look at that thinking. You look at the response, the relief response. They spent $700 million to buy rice and oil and sugar to distribute to people, and that didn't make sense because we told them that, look, we don't know how long this pandemic will be with us for. If people finish their rice within 1 week, what happens when the pandemic fades? And at that time, we were not even at the peak of the pandemic in the Gambia. I look at the millions of dollars they spent in buying those ambulances without following through procurement processes. And those ambulances are in the Gambia, but I'm not even saving lives. Our morgues are full now because of why they have to test every dead body and they don't have space. They have to bring containers. So the whole thing was just poorly planned and it failed. That is the fact. Now, when it comes to the democratic reforms, obviously, like I said, and I gave context that we are in a period of a transition, even though some can argue that the transition has been aborted for very many reasons. Why? One of the things was that the agenda has been aborted from the onset, obviously. It was supposed to be a 3-year transition according to the MOU. Whether it was signed or not signed, that is for another debate. The current president was supposed to have for 3 years. We are supposed to reform do the institutional reforms, do the security sector reform, come up with a new constitution. After 3 years, we are supposed to go to the polls where the current president was not supposed to contest. Just to kind of inject a new democratic culture into the polity. We had agreed, obviously, that one of the key problems that we had as a country was self-perpetuating leaders who overstay in power. Jawara for 30 years, obviously, Yajame for 22 years. So the idea was that was one of the problems, and now to kind of obviate that problem, one of the things was to ensure that we reset the whole democratic culture by ensuring that the transitional leader stays in power for 3 years, steps down. That was going to be the first time in the history of the Gambia to have a president who voluntarily cedes power and conducts elections that he or she would not have taken part in. That was supposed to start something new for Gambia. But obviously, we saw what happened. The 3-year, 5-year debate came. Parties took sides based on party interest. The national interest was put in the dustbin, and we are with a transition that has failed by and large, even though it's too early to call the verdict. But going by the way we are seeing, the way the TRRC is going, the insider information we get from the TRRC, the security sector reform, and everything, we know that the transition is but a failed project. However, at least it could have been made better had we had a new constitution. At least that would have been could have given us hope that even though it was failed, but we have a new constitution, which is better than the 1997 constitution. But today, that also is in limbo because we don't know whether there will be enough time to have a new constitution before the next elections. And for me, I think that would be a great disservice to the Gambian people if we had to conduct another election in the Gambia in 2021 without a new constitution, with the old constitution that everybody agreed that it was a bad constitution. And that was supposed to be the basis, in fact, the foundation for our transition was for us to have a new constitution which enhances the Bill of Rights, which puts which tames the power of the executive by taking power from the executive and giving it to the people, to the parliament, by making sure there are term limits as well, and so many other innovative provisions in the new constitution that was supposed to make Gambia a truly democratic state, because that is what we want. Because without that, then we cannot develop. But it seems like that is also in limbo. And for me, the debate now in the Gambia should be who are the key actors that can really save the reform processes now, especially the democratic reforms, in particular, the constitutional review process. We have the inter-party committee, which for I don't know why they are very quiet. They are not engaging because these are the 3 actors: the inter-party committee, government, and IEC to make this thing happen. But the inter-party committee, we have not heard from them. Even though the Citizens Alliance, we are part of the inter-party committee, but there is a leadership in the inter-party committee. I think now was the time for the inter-party committee to engage, because if the rules of the game are not fair, then we cannot complain at the end of the day. And the way things are going now, it seems like we'll there'll be a time whereby it will be elections. And there are many allegations going on now. In fact, these are allegations that I have verified myself, that we are giving out Gambian ID cards to aliens. These are top immigration officers who told me, look, you guys need to do something about this. A top immigration officer was moved from Farafenye because he refused to take part in this whole fraud. He was moved to somewhere else, and somebody was brought, and they are giving any alien that comes, either a Senegalese or a Guinean, to renew their cards, they are giving Gambian ID cards. And this is happening. So it means it is telling us that the whole conspiracy to rig the elections in 2021 has started. And I think political parties have to be vigilant to ensure that it doesn't happen, because you don't think about the game itself. The process before the game is important, and that's where political parties come in. So IEC also is not, they came up with a timetable. I saw one timetable telling us when there'll be registration, when there'll be election. They say, I think, 4th of December 2021. But within the context of COVID-19, I haven't seen a separate policy document like Dave has alluded to, which tells us how do we ensure that all these things happen within COVID-19. And that is not happening. And also the TRRC as well, it has stalled. I mean, they stopped it obviously because of the pandemic, but I can also tell you with certainty that the TRRC is bound to fail. I'm gonna say it here because I've got insiders who are telling me that even some of the commissioners are disillusioned with the process, the way it is going. And one of the Batambedu resigned because he knew why he left, because he knew that he messed up the whole project is going to fail. So now the only thing with the TRRC about to fail, and the Commission of Inquiry, which has obviously, we know what the kind of selective justice that took place, and the manner in which some assets were sold off without following due process, it means that also has failed. Now, the only thing that can save at least the transition is the new constitution. And for me, my worry is that with the pandemic, we might end up not having a new constitution before the elections. And my second worry is that with the president extending the state of emergencies every 21 days, we extend with curfews, we'll wake up one morning and they'll tell us, you know what, we cannot have elections in 2021. Why? Because there's no money. One, we'll spend the money on COVID-19. And they'll give up some other flimsy excuses just to push the elections. And I can also tell you with certainty that there's a conspiracy going on at that level to ensure that elections are pushed further away. And I think that would also be a disservice. And I think our role as intellectuals, as citizens, as people who care about the country, is to start discussions now, to hold government accountable, to put pressure on government to come up with a clear plan for the rest of the transition within the context of COVID-19. What is your plan, government? What do you intend to do? What are your plans to ensure that we have a referendum as scheduled by the IEC? IEC, how are you going to ensure? In fact, IEC is planning to do registration, voter registration. Did you get the funding from government? Because government is saying that the money has been spent. I mean, we all know how the government in fact acted with the money thing. When money was coming left, right, and center, we saw ministers everywhere collecting money in Africell, in places. When the money dried down, we have them said, in fact, they said they had COVID-19. All of them got sick when the money dried down. And now I'm not seeing any of the ministers. The Minister of Education, obviously, now should come up with a strategy. What is your strategy? It's September. Kids have to go back to school. Are they going to school or not? If not, what is the plan? Is they are going to be online? What is the budget for that online? Who's going to pay for that? How is it going to go about? What about kids in rural Gambia who cannot have access to the internet or TV? How do you deal with those ones? Or are they going back to school? What are the doctors telling us about the disease? Because for me, I mean, in the UK, kids have started going back to school because why? They said the kids are not more affected by the virus, even though they are super spreaders, but at least they are going back to school. And even the UNICEF is saying that kids who are not going to for 1 year is likely to do more damage to them than the virus will do to them. So what is the government's plan in terms of going back to school for the kids? Zero. I haven't seen anything. The last time I heard the Minister of Education speak was how the borough government has built story building classes. That's all he's telling us. And not a strategy, a comprehensive one to say, look, we are going to school in September. These are the guidelines. This is how we are going to do it. Teachers are being trained to deal with school within the context of COVID-19. Educators, local governments should be brought in to take part in the whole process. And I agree with Dr. Conteh that when they create the task force, the interministerial task force, the local governments are not included. It's only ministers who are politicians. But the virus affects people at the most basic level. I was supposed to think that local government leaders were supposed to be part of that task force because they did directly with the people, but that did not happen. So for me, basically, Ahmed, our response to the COVID-19 has failed, obviously. People have died. Everything is a mess in the Gambia today. There's no leadership. In fact, also with certainty and with authority, I can tell you that there was no leadership at some point because the president kind of passed leadership away. When he was consulted, in fact, and this is insiders who went about what should we do, he'll push it to the go to Minister of Health, he's the expert. Go to the Vice President, he's the chair of the task force. He was running away from responsibility. That's why at some point there was no leadership. There was a huge power vacuum. And nobody knew who was in control of the country. And at some point the Vice President got sick, was away. Some ministers also said that coronavirus. Then the president went AWOL. We don't know what was happening at that point. There was a huge power vacuum at that time. So for me, I think the question should be government. Come and tell us, what do you have for us to ensure that the reforms we have started, we've spent billions and millions and millions of dollars in these reforms, the TRRC. We spent a lot of money on the TRRC. We cannot just leave it like that for it to fail. The Constitution, we spent $116 million to have a new Constitution. With all the consultations, the commissioners went all over Europe and America to consult with the diaspora, to come up with a new Constitution. Now, so what about the Constitution? Are we going to have it or not? If not, why and how? I think this should be the debate now, and I think we should put pressure on the government to come up with a document, a strategy to tell us Gambians that this is what they want to do to ensure that the security sector reforms is pursued as they had started, the constitutional reform, how is it going to go about, the TRRC, and so on and so forth. That's it, Ahmed.
Sorry, I was muted. Doctor, one of the, I have to, I always give myself the platform. Okay, one thing, this is a comment and also a question before I pass the baton to Dave and Doctor. One of these is the quarantine people in the hotels. I'm not so, okay, so you take off your spell, huh? The Brufuta man is here. Banka, you are muted. You are muted. We can't hear you.
Yeah. I think the Brikaman made me have an internet problem today.
I beg him to let you in.
Yeah, actually I was on the road, got here, and I literally had to grab something quickly to eat. So, you know, but anyway, long story short, here I am now. Doctor, thank you for joining us. We are glad to have you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Quarantine people traveling from Europe in the hotels. You know, as you put it, I've been hammering this almost on weekly basis. And now exactly what happened, when we have the numbers, when numbers surge, they don't have the money to quarantine them. They are telling people COVID positive, over 2,000 of them, right, go and self-isolate in your homes. You know, pending development of symptoms, then you call us. And we just realized 2 weeks ago that the 1025 is actually not working. So basically, we know that COVID is one of the most contagious viruses ever to afflict man. That's why we are struggling to contain it. Now, in our family settings, we all know where we come from in the West Coast region. You know, anywhere in the Combos, anyway, is all overcrowded. How on earth a COVID positive somebody to go home and self-isolate? So if every COVID patient is capable of transmitting it to 3.58 people, so that means 2,000 plus times 4. You know, that's like 8,000 people are being infected on a weekly basis. And it's not surprising, our positivity rate has been 34 steadily for 2 weeks. That means, you know, the magnitude of the pandemic, we might not even know, and we are not doing enough tests. The other one is a question. You mentioned inter-party committee, and you mentioned government can use this pandemic to actually adjourn the election, you know, to buy himself time. But don't you think the inter-party committee, you know, could I call it refusal to meet, to convene? They are helping Barrow actually in that. What's your take on that? You are muted. You are muted. Can you?
Yes, of course. In fact, before I answer that question, the quarantine issue is a very interesting one.
Yes.
I've seen situations where I've been to a few treatment centers and also some quarantine centers just to visit, just to understand what's happening there. Could you believe that some people are sent home to spend the weekend at home when during their period of quarantine? That go home on Friday and come back on Monday. Just leave your passport and come back on Monday morning. It just shows how we spent millions on that whole quarantine thing and it wasn't effective, like you said. So when it comes to the inter-party committee, I think yes. I'm not really sure why. I mean, for some reason, it seems some political parties don't really understand their role in a democracy. And that's why yesterday I had this argument for the people by the people show that political parties operating in a dictatorship is different from operating in a democracy. And when dictatorship was toppled after 2016, most political parties, in fact, not all, had to really reform from within, obviously, and start holding government accountable. That is what political parties do. That is at some point I argued that we should not be called opposition parties, but alternative parties, because our role as political parties is to give alternative government. Where governments do it wrong, we say, hey, government, it's not this way, it is this way. And where they do it right, we say, yes, it is right, but perhaps do this to enhance on what you are doing. But it seems like that's not what's happening. And the whole COVID-19, I have not been aware of any inter-party committee meeting to really strategize as how do we engage government and the IEC to ensure that democratic reforms progress within the context of COVID-19. I think that should have been an opportunity for the inter-party committee to meet and put pressure, not put pressure, but also engage the IEC and government, or government to the IEC to say, look, we are worried because we've seen in many other countries, elections are postponed. Currently in Dankunku, there was supposed to be a by-election. It's been put on hold. It means that that particular seat is vacant now since the demise of the GDC member who died, who was the member of parliament. So in many parts of the world around the globe, elections have been postponed this year. But also some also having elections within the country. We've seen that. We've seen Belarus recently. We've seen in Togo. We've seen in Mali, the National Assembly elections took place there. We've seen in Malawi recently when the opposition challenged the results and they went. All this happened within the context of COVID-19. So it means that things can happen in COVID-19, but you have to get a clear strategy and clear guidelines how to make it happen. And that is what is missing. So if the IEC is quiet and not acting, the inter-party committee, because at the end of the day, if the reforms fail, it's going to favor the incumbent and not the political party. So they have everything to lose. So they cannot wait. We cannot afford to wait until things fall apart and we start complaining. It wouldn't do any good. I think it is now that we have to be proactive. The inter-party has to be proactive. The inter-party has to be proactive now to engage IEC. In fact, to have a meeting first. What is the strategy? How do we engage IEC? What is happening in fact? Will we have elections? Are we on track to ensure the democratic calendar is possible, for example? If not, why? Because I'm really concerned that that might not be the case. That at worst, what will happen is that there might not be elections in 2021. At worst, I'm not praying for that. I hope it doesn't happen. But the way things are going, if this government is not held accountable, if we don't check them and ensure that they do the right thing, we might end up doing that. But at best, what could also happen, which will not favor anybody, is having elections, but with the old constitution. And we know what the old constitution is about. It favors the incumbent. Obviously, Jame tailored that constitution to favor any sitting president. It means that one, Boros term limit will be extended. It means these 5 years will not be counted. In fact, the next 5 years will not even be counted, because then the new constitution will not come into place until the 2026 elections. It also means that any with the minority can also win by 20% is forced past the post, as opposed to the 50+1 that this new constitution got. So I think, yes, you are right. The IPC not being proactive, keeping quiet, not putting pressure and engaging the IEC and putting pressure on government is also helping government to do what they want to do.
Yeah, thank you, Doc. Banka, I'll leave you. I will let David in and Dr. Conteh so you get the gist of what where we are. I'm not sure if you are following, but before then, one of the commentators. This is a question from our viewers from UK. Ibrahim Ajane wrote, when things go wrong, the leadership should become up. When things go wrong, the leadership should be accountable to the parliament, political parties, and the people. Dr. Ceesay, do you think political parties, parliament, and the people are doing their job to enforce accountability, if you like it, on the Gambia government?
Well, I think no. Recently, we wrote to the parliament to say that use section, I think what is 98, trigger it to have an extraordinary session, to bring the executive to parliament to explain, bring the Minister of Interior to tell us what they are doing with ensuring that the guidelines are enforced, the curfew and the others. Bring the Minister of Education to tell us what are her plans to ensure kids go back to school in September. And then bring the Minister of Finance to come and give an account of the money that is being spent. And even bring the President to come and give account how he is responding to the COVID-19, or even the Vice President. But again, that's what political parties should do, especially those in parliament, those with seats in parliament. And I have seen that parliament has really been very weak in their oversight function when it comes to the COVID-19. But also, I was also expecting that there was going to be a parliamentary task force, a parliamentary COVID-19 task force, which will be established to ensure that they go to treatment centers, they go to institutions, they ensure that the facilities are available, they ensure that PPEs are provided for frontline workers. But that is also not possible. We've seen that parliament has gone quiet, actually, at a time when leadership was needed. At a time when the executive was very quiet and went AWOL, we thought parliament would take leadership, but they were also on recess. And I wouldn't imagine that during a pandemic, I wouldn't want the parliament to be on recess. They would have been on their toes to ensure that the executive is held accountable, that ministers who have a strategic role to play in the pandemic, the Minister of Defense, the Minister of Interior, Minister of Education, and the Minister of Finance, that these ministries, and the Minister of Health, obviously, that they come to Parliament to tell us exactly what they've been doing, what they are doing, and what they plan to do going forward. So we know exactly that they're on track, but right now we don't know. We don't know which ministry is doing what. We don't know who's doing the right thing or the wrong thing, because we don't know what they are doing. They're just doing their stuff. But if Parliament was bringing them to come and explain to us what they are doing and what they intend to do, at least we could hold them accountable. We can know exactly the direction they want to take. And then experts like us, like you, when we see that perhaps what the Minister of Education is proposing for school education, perhaps it's not very viable. And we can, that's why we come in, we experts, to say, look, Madam Minister, we would suggest that you do X, Y, Z because this will not work because of X, Y, Z. But that debate is dead in the Gambia. Nobody's talking about these things. We don't know what, in fact, the Minister of Interior, I can tell you that they are saying the officer don't even know the regulations. You cannot implement and enforce a regulation you don't know about. So what was missing also was training for the security forces when the COVID-19 started. The people need to, because it's something new. I mean, this is the first time many people experience this. So most of the security agencies don't even know the regulations. So you see that they go to markets, they start not beating people, but forcefully taking people's produce. People, I mean, a family, you have to feed your family, you come to sell it, they just forcefully take it away from you and then take you to court. That is why no wonder where a lot of drivers were taken to court for violating the COVID-19 rules, because people don't even know. And the government also failed in educating the people. I mean, Dr. Conteh said that he wants to blame our folk for the lack of political education. I mean, I disagree with that. I think I blame the government. The government has to make sure they provide the opportunities and the institutions for people to be politically educated. I mean, if you tell me that I have to stay at home from 10 o'clock at night till 6 a.m. You need to tell me why that is important for me. If you tell me to change my behavior, you need to tell me. So government failed in making sure that they really do the advocacy and the sensitization. It was left with individuals and civil society, and government really failed to have a plan. The NCC, National Civic Education Center, I mean, they also did not do enough to ensure that Gambians are educated about COVID-19. And one of the things was that they also failed to integrate the local governments into the whole process, and they are supposed to do that job. So yes, political parties should hold government account, especially parliament. I think parliament should have played a key role. But for me, I'm very disappointed that the role they played was not good enough.
Yeah, thank you very much, Doctor, once again, and Ibrahim Hassan. I'll bring your point back when we go into a real discussion. If you hear that right, we might not only have to do with President Barrow for another year, that's the 2022, but he might have another 5 years. That is not accounted when the new constitution come into play. And also we might have to do with a constitution that tormented us for 22 years, to go to election. I think that will be the worst part of all this transition. We spent all those years, people died, people were exiled, and still we have to go to election with that man's constitution. What's your take on Doctor's last segment?
Yeah, I don't want to sound melodramatic, overly dramatic, but I think it definitely sent chills down my spine. Really, yeah, I think it's a very, very dangerous prospect if you think about it. Really, I mean, the consequences for our country. I mean, yeah, I don't even want to think about it. It's unthinkable, really. I mean, no disrespect to Barrow. I always tell people this is nothing against the guy. He's just not capable of being, of being the leader. He's just not capable, and there's no disrespect to him. I mean, traditionally, I mean, it's quite sad to say traditionally, but historically, I mean, there's always been leadership vacuum in the Gambia, leadership deficiency, you can say. But this coronavirus, this pandemic is exposed that the Gambia has got basically, we have the leadership vacuum in the Gambia is, I don't want to, I don't want to use emotional language here, but I think it's verging on criminal negligence, really. I mean, what happened in that Gambia? What passes in that country for governance? What passes in that country for administration? I mean, it's criminal. It's really criminal. I don't want to get want to use emotional language, but I think it's criminal. I think those people are really, really they not fit for purpose. The whole unit is not fit for purpose, really. I mean, I did hear some mutterings about this registration of aliens in the Gambia. Uh, I didn't think there was any substance to it. But hearing from Dr. Ceesay, obviously he's on the ground and he's connected. I can assume that. I'm actually confident that the guy is connected. If he can have insider information that this is happening in the country, that is criminal. That goes against our laws. That goes against the constitution of the Gambia, as deficient as it is. I know Jam abuse it. But I mean, I mean, the implications for our country are very, very severe. They're very, very severe. So these are this vacuum, this leadership deficiency. Like I said, it's been there since Jawara's time. I mean, they get better or worse. But I mean, Barrow's government is terrible. Barrow's government absolutely, it's just a deplorable state the Gambia is in right now. Where do we go from here? Where do we go from here? I think Dr. Ceesay basically he gave us what's it called, some guides, if you want to call it that, some clues of where we should go. I think if it's going to be civil disobedience or something, I don't know, something we need to work on. But just the idea of Barrow having to stay on, just even past 2021, I mean, that should be a cause of concern for everybody. That should actually keep us awake at night. I mean, the guy is just not, the whole outfit is not fit for purpose. The whole outfit is not fit for purpose. Like I said, we don't want to get emotional, but they are verging on criminal negligence. What is happening in that country right now, really? I mean, no institution works. Our institutions have always been deficient, but right now they are absolutely bankrupt. Seriously, nothing works in that place. It's a serious concern. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Dave. I don't think since we started, I've seen you this agitated about something. Yeah, if Dave is agitated, what about Dr. Conteh? I'll beg, please keep it simple.
I'm sorry.
Yes, Dr. Conteh, please.
Oh, okay, thank you. This registration of aliens is very troubling. And so, Dr. Ceesay, I would like for you to access the registration documents at the IEC and try to extrapolate the percentage increase of registration relative to prior year registrations. And if you're going to see that there may be significant differences, then we know we can. Because JAMA did that. If you look at the West Coast population and the registration, I looked at the registration of West Coast region and I said, no, most of the people who actually were registered in West Coast probably came from southern Senegal. So we need to do that. But I also would like to challenge you and the political leaders to have a dialogue with the president. Other countries have done it, even Liberia at one time. They met with the president, the finance minister, and so forth. But again, I have always been saying that we don't even need to have two ministries of education. The United States, Gambia can go into the United States how many times? We only have one ministry of education. So that one is a problem. I also would like to talk about the fact that how do you expect a minister of finance to account for the expenditure or even the revenue received in terms of aid when he could not even explain to Parliament the total assets of a country when he was asked? And those questions were sent to him well before he came to Parliament. And the member of Parliament for Upper Salom asked that question. And our Minister of Finance could not even tell us, tell Parliament, that, well, if you know the total liabilities of a country, and maybe fiscal year ending 2019, we had a surplus or a deficit. If we have a deficit, it's going to be a negative. And then if you take that out from the liability section, you can actually tell Gambians that, well, based on the accounting equation, this is, in my view, what we have in our assets. But again, we don't. So again, like I said, I think this should be a communal effort for all of us to come together. Yeah, I agree that the government has failed. But when I talk about political education, I'm not talking about political education in terms of the COVID. I'm talking about politicians talking about FASA role. I think I know FASA. And then some people talking about, well, I come from this particular tribe. We have 42% of the population. And I always ask, how about the 58? So when we tend to look at those kinds, and then in the Gambia, we should be proud of the fact that in a marriage in the Gambia, per capita wise, we are higher, Gambia and Senegal. In other countries, people marry by tribe. And in fact, I do believe that the next census we're going to have in the Gambia, we shouldn't even enumerate people based on tribe. Go out to a compound, count how many male, female. Ages, that's it. Don't ask for tribe. So again, Dr. Ceesay, a nephew of mine, I just want to engage you to say that please find it in your heart to engage the president because we have failed leadership. Folks who actually engage Yaya Jammeh, the parasites, are the ones who are enjoying. And then any government comes in, they're going to do that. Even during Sadaw's time, people who made Sadaw fail were the ones who came with Jammeh. And Barrow, people who made Jammeh fail are the ones who are occupying the stuff. So these are things that we need to come. So I think that the Gambia, we have been doing this. I've been in politics ever since I was 18 years old. I left the Gambia because of the PPP nonsense. Excuse my language. And thank God I came here to get an education. But I'm still opposition. And these are things that we need to do. So please find it in your heart to mobilize. I think if you call other, I know Mama Kande probably will join you. I know that, I don't know of the yellow people. I don't know them, but maybe you can engage them. But we should not base politics on tribe. And all of us here, I do believe we speak the same language, right? And I've always been said that, when we try to propagate our politics based on tribe, it's making us look bad. So, and then you hear some folks who are out there chastising the president of Senegal, that they met and they said, government in Gambia. So I said, oh my God. So when you agitate You are propagating certain hate speech, and you are chastising the president of Senegal. We know that the Gambia, even though we are small, we are a strategic importance to Senegal. So please, let's not sit here. I told the the constitutional people when they came to Minnesota that the president is going to drag his feet on this, and the gentleman said, "Oh no, we're going to take care of this," and damn right, I was right. So again, brothers and sisters, ladies and gentlemen, we are a very poor country, but we Gambians are very, very nurturing and nice people. So let's not try politics to divide us. And again, as Komponkas, yes, when it comes to the land issue of Combo, we will fight. We will join the Manneh people, because anytime I think about the Bruford Heights, my blood boils. And you see that our people don't even have, do you know that in Bruford, the graveyards are getting filled? I even asked a gentleman, I said, do you have land to bury people? No, they don't. And then you go to most of, so Dr. Ceesay, I'm going to put you on spot too, because when we talk about the land issue in Combo, we also would like to hear your political party's stance on the sand mining.
Yeah, Doctor, that will be.
I'm going to end. I said what? I took it from you.
I'm going to challenge Doctor for a special program on that, because we have to put them on the spot. That will be a special day, different from this. Let's keep it to COVID-19 and
then I'm going to rest my case on that, because I do believe that Dr. Ceesay will have a wonderful answer for us, because we cannot afford to. Do you know by 2034 the Gambia's population is going to be 4 million people? You know that? That's my case.
Yeah. So Banka, finally, the floor is yours. You are mid now. I think you have a gist of where we are now.
You see him.
That's why. That's why I deliberately keep you at bay for a while. So
no, excuse me. He's going to throw a grenade. He's throwing a grenade and not throwing at Brikama.
But no, I want to thank Doctor for joining us today. Doctor, this is our little corner here where we usually are on Mondays, raving and ranting about the issues. To discuss, because after having heard from all of you, I think that I pretty much all the bases have been covered. So what I want to just highlight is the fact that since we are talking about COVID-19 as it relates to, and its implications on our democratic reforms, is that on?
He's struggling today.
Yeah, he's definitely struggling. He's traveling.
Don't ever say anything bad about Brikama.
Yeah, but before then, I will bring Sana's comment again. Yeah, Doctor mentioned about the education, that the Minister of Education have actually no plans. Your comments as though your program or personal whatever. I don't even know. Okay, that's not the one I want to read. That is, yeah. Sana said, to all relevant points in the West Africa schools leaving certificate exam, how can they expect our kids to go and start the most important exam of their lives in on the time when the country is in lockdown? What mental state are they going to be in, and what are the chances of them getting infected and all that? Yeah. So this is from another commentator from UK, Sana Sedi, in relation to the education bit. So, Doctor, these will be our final segments of comments. You heard from other commentators. Definitely, we're going to bring you here what is going to be your policy on combo land issues, the discriminatory laws. That's going to be another day if we can have you, because I know everybody wants a piece of you these days. So
I think that's another element to the combo land issue.
Yeah.
You would agree with me that Batokunku, Sanyang, I think, and Tangier, thereabout, There is an enormous amount of black sand lying under those places in Congo.
Yeah.
You know, you're not benefiting anything from that black sand. Do you know that?
Yeah,
The resources of Congo and the land
mm,
of Congo should benefit the people of Congo. Unfortunately, that is not the case. I mean, I know this thought about the Congo, but sometimes it pains me when I look at what's happening in Congo. But also, there's another dangerous element to it, the future. Currently, in most parts of Congo, also they are selling all our land to the Chinese, especially in Brikama and its surroundings. So there'll be a time, in fact, it's going to be about most of the residents of Congo will be forced to be foreigners in Congo. Just like today, look at Sukuta. I mean, Bijilo all the way to Brufut Heights, Brufut, all those places were part of Sukuta. But Sukuta did not benefit anything, not even a clinic, a proper clinic did benefit from it. All those black sand coming from Badakungu, Sanyang, and Tanje, it's not benefiting the people of Sanyang and Badakungu.
Yeah,
Not even a school, not even a clinic.
Dr. Let's reserve that for another session, complete session. That's something is very, in fact, that's what motivated this platform. So I will read from Pa Samba Jr. I think he's a lawyer by profession. If you can put this on the screen for me. Gunjur Online, the government ought to have considered primary legislation to deal with COVID-19 rather than rely on constitution, state of emergency, as the latter is not robust enough to deal with a public health pandemic. As for the impact of COVID-19 on the democracy, alternative to holding election in 2021, ought to be given serious consideration to find the right balance between public health consideration and democracy. We mustn't wait until 2021 to start to address the sensitive matter. Doctor, I think this is what you are on about, yeah.
Exactly. I think I agree with
yeah, you deal with
there. That's why when I started, I said when the COVID-19 started in China, and we knew that it was a question of when and not if it would arrive our shores, government should have looked inwards and say what are the resources available, what are the legal resources available to us to fight the COVID-19, what are the human resources, and so on and so forth. And I think that's what he's saying. But also the whole issue of 2021, I fear that we'll wake up in the morning, one morning, and we'll realize that we did not plan. And he's right, that starts now. So people are not taking, so we're not surprised when there are changes to the electoral calendar. We need to start knowing now whether there will be elections or not. If there will be, what is the strategy? Balancing, having the right balance between democracy and public health concerns like Pasambu. So I totally agree with what he's saying.
Yeah, thank you very much. We come almost to the end. We always give final thoughts from our panelists. I will start with Dave, then Doctor, you can close this. Dave, then Prof. Conteh, then Dr. Ceesay, you can conclude the program. Dave.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, the news is not good. Really. The statistics is grim. The outlook, it looks grim. I mean, it seems like we're going to the doldrums. We're going to the dogs, like we say in England. Here, you're going to the dogs. The Gambia is going to the dogs. But I think we probably will need to try and work on a strategy to try and counter what Dr. Ceesay said. And I have no doubt at all that I believe him, that there are plans afoot. People are working on their plans to make sure that Barrow can stay in power. I mean, COVID-19, the pandemic is unfortunate, but for some people, that probably is an opportunity. It couldn't have come at a better time for them. So we just need to try and work on strategies of trying to make sure that their dream doesn't come to pass, really, because that will be devastating for our country. So I don't know, what civil organizations, civil society groups they got in the Gambia, and if they got lawyers that work for them. Because I spoke to my friend Madi Jabate, him and I went to school together, so he's my friend. I spoke to him a little while back to say, what lawyer do we have in the Gambia who in the UK will say they can work pro bono, or even so that they can take some of these courses. I mean, somebody like in the Gambia, you should, as a Gambian, it's your constitutional right to take the government to court, to take them to account. So do we have lawyers who are there to either work on pro bono basis, or where people like us who are willing every now and again to contribute towards their legal fees, so that some of these issues like Dr. Ceesay mentioned here, like this registration of aliens, I think that needs to be counted right now. I think because the consequences, if that goes on unchallenged, I think is very, very serious for our country. because we don't even have a proper functioning system. We don't have a government that functions anyway. So we don't have institutions that work. Well, on top of that, if we have giving people opportunities who are not legally have the legal right to vote, to take part in our political system, and they are voting, and those votes they have consequences. I think we need to do something about that. I think Dr. Ceesay need to look into that. I mean, people like us, obviously, we'll chip in. We'll chip in, and we make sure that we get lawyers to make sure that we go through the court system if need be. Because that's the only avenue we have. We don't have avenue. We don't have any other avenue. We don't want to try any other option. We want to go through the court system, through the legal system, through the right way, so that the Gambia as a contiguous nation can stay the way it is. We can stick together. But I think we are coming to a very, very serious epoch in our political life in the Gambia, and I think we all need to wake up and realize something needs to be done, or the consequences might be very, very severe for us. Like Dr. Ceesay said again, and I mean Dr. Conteh also elaborated on this. There are so many things we can talk about in the Gambia, and lack of institution goes to it. And I always go back to even though I'm a layman when it comes to politics and political science and even Gambian history, but I always put the blame right squarely at the foot of Jawara. I didn't think he did a proper job of educating Gambians about their civil rights and their politics. If you compare them to, let's say, Senegal. Anyway, I don't want to make this too long. I mean, this is just a conclusion, but I would like to stress that Dr. Ceesay, I think we would like to task you with this job. Really would like to task you, make some inquiries and see what we can do, because we have to do everything within our power to stop aliens registering to vote in the Gambia. I think that is a very, very urgent matter. Thank you.
Barrow, I always tell people this is nothing against.
Yeah, thank you very much. Dr. Conteh, what's your final take on this?
I think I'm just going to pass my last word to my nephew.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much. That's nice of you. So, Dr. Foss, we say we are very, very grateful, and be rest assured we're going to come back to you as a Kombonka as well. We have many issues in Combo. The fish mill, you don't even mention those.
Yeah, of course. I forgot that.
The sand mining for building, the black sand, and a lot more. So that's why we need a special program for that. And we'll give you time to go and rest, and we will send you an invitation again. And people task you, Dave task you, and your uncle task you to please engage the government or your in-party committee member. So what's your final take? And also you have a lot of your fans also saying hello and all that. And one Mr. Idrissa Keita also suggested, thank you. I think this platform should invite all politicians to tell us what policy they have on Combo lands, mining, fisheries, and other resources. Yes, that's our plan. So Doctor is the first politician, but we invite a lot of lawyers here and all that. And this is an ongoing thing. It's a platform. It's like a book. Every Monday we gather here and talk about issues affecting Combo. Because Combo, when you say Combo is Gambia. It's a melting pot. That's why people like us, we can feel comfortable in certain kind of political party, because, Combo, if you are Mandinka, and the next door neighbor is either Serel or Fula. And that's how we are. It's not a monolithic community. So definitely, it's not in our psyche to be tribalist, even though partisan politics is dragging us into it, which I hate, to happen. So that's why we need dynamic, pragmatic leaders to come, and desensitize Gambians about tribe. It's not tribe that put food on your table. It's about people's abilities and all that. So, Doctor, please conclude this program for us. Then,
I thank you all. I thank my co-panelists. I thank Dr. Obviously Conteh and Dave Manneh, and thank you also as well. I also thank Banka, even though we've only had 5 seconds.
He said he has a new phone. I told him, blame it on the good doctor. Maybe he put a spell on you.
Yes, I'm trying to avoid him. Like you are right, Ahmed. Combo, even though, yes, I agree, I'm really looking forward to that discussion as well. Come and talk about Combo. Combo is the microcosm of the Gambia. It's if you want to understand Gambia's diversity and Gambia's potential, just look at Combo. So I think it will be very important for us to come and discuss issues happening there. I've done a lot of research actually. I've gone down to many sand mines. I've gone to white sand mines. I've seen the looming environmental disaster that is about to occur in the Gambia, especially in Combo, where these things happen. So I'll be very happy to come and share my thoughts and my experiences with what I'm seeing in Combo today when it comes to the land and the resource issues. My final comments is just a clarion call today. Gambia is at the crossroads, Ahmed. If the Gambia ever needs its citizens, its good citizens, to stand up and fight for the future of that country, it is now. Now is the time. If we miss this train, believe me, like you said, we might as well consider our options. And I get worried when I listen to political debates and people really are comfortable in saying that only two parties have a chance to win the next elections, and that is the UDP and the NPP. I agree. I mean, obviously, logically speaking, a party that's in existence for 24 years in opposition obviously cannot be compared to newer parties. A party in power, having the advantage of incumbency, obviously, has the resources and the wherewithal. But again, is that are the choices? If our choices are really narrowed down to those two options alone for Gambia, then we should be very worried, because we know that for the NPP, to be honest, they really cannot. I mean, everybody, even a child. I mean, sometimes I go to places, Ahmed, and people, old people, young people, men, women, tell me that, look, we'd rather Jammeh had stayed than what we have now, and that burns that kills me. That after all this trouble, after all the fight, it all comes down to people still saying that had Jammeh had stayed, it's better than what we have now. I think that is very, very worrying. That's a bad verdict for what we've come so far. So I think now is the time for us to really take our country seriously. Dr. Ture mentioned that by 2034 will be 4 million people. 4 million people. By 2050, will be 5 million people. Are we ready to house 5 million people? Do we have the jobs for 5 million? And 70% of this will be young people. Because today our median age is 17.4. It means that we're a very young population. And young people need jobs. They need vocational training. They need skills and jobs. Will we have the right vocational institutions for young people by 2030? For these 4 million, for these 3 million young people perhaps. And if I say vocational training institutions, not only those in Banjul, but also in rural areas, housing is a problem today. There has been a lot of pressure on housing in the Combos. Why? Because rural-urban migration has increased over the past year. And empirically, it is proven that international migration has decreased when Libya disintegrated and other avenues for our young people to take the back way are halted. They are forced to stay in the Gambia. Yet rural areas are dilapidated. No roads, no amenities, no water, no electricity. Everybody's moving to the urban areas. The result is that 60% almost of our population live in urban Gambia, shooting housing prices to over 100%, putting pressure on social services, on water, on electricity, on roads. That is why today, if you go to the Gambia, the traffic is crazy. I mean, it doesn't matter if it's peak or non-peak hours. It can take you an hour from traffic light to turntable. And the way and the indiscipline with the driver, people driving left, right, and center. So a lot of things happening in the content makes me get worried that if we don't come up now and come up with a force, a progressive force, to try to take this country and transform it, we'll be failing the next generation. And for us, it's not about who should govern beyond 2021. It's about how should we govern our country beyond 2021. That is key. And I think once we are able to come up with that force, that progressive force, to come up with a master plan for the Gambia, a blueprint for the Gambia up to 2050, that work starts now. Housing for our population of 5 million in 2050, education, healthcare, roads, electricity. That job starts now. We don't wait until 2030 or 2050 to do that job. It will explode. So we need to start building a country now for the future. Building a country now that can house 5 million people in 2050. Now that job starts. Why today we are in this mess? To some extent, sometimes I feel that we can be unfair to blame Barrow. This problem started way back. The previous government failed to plan for today. In 1990, Jawara's government should have got a blueprint, a realistic blueprint for Gambia 2020. would have been enjoying and reaping the benefits of that development agenda. But no, there was no plan. And there is nothing in the Gambia today that has to do with the welfare of future generations. When we plan, nothing. When we build roads for the amount of cars that are using it today. I'm not thinking that by 2050, if we have 10,000 cars in the Gambia today, by 2050 we will 50,000 cars. You build roads for 50,000 cars and beyond, and even leaves room for further expansion. So planning is a problem, and I think today we've reached a point whereby the previous generations has failed this generation. That is why today we have a lot of problems in the country. We cannot afford to fail the next generation. I've always argued it takes one generation to change the fortunes of next generations to come. And I think this generation, our generation, has what it takes, well equipped, well connected, been living in the diaspora for far too long, saw how other societies evolved and develop. I think this generation is the golden generation. This is Gambia's golden. This is our chance, Ahmed, all of us, Dave, Dr. Conteh, and everybody out there who is an expert in many different ways, living in the diaspora. It's time for us to come together and save our country. Let us forget about tribe, about region, about political party affiliation. Let us see Gambia. Otherwise, what's going to happen is that most of us will grow up in the West and want to go back after getting our pensions. We cannot go back to Gambia because there is nothing there. No health facilities, no good roads, nothing. And our kids will grow up in a country where they cannot live in dignity. And they would want to take the back way to go. But now they cannot. They will force to live in the Gambia with the bad health system, with the poor education, with the poor roads. Why? Because the Europeans are closing their borders. The Americans are building walls. It's going to be difficult for our kids to come to Europe to study. It was easier for us at our time. At that time, you all know there was no visa between the Gambia and most European countries. Now, it's impossible for a young man to get a visa. And most of our young people live in a state of involuntary mobility, which is also dangerous. What is that? Young Gambians, loads of them in urban Gambia, sitting and waiting to go to Europe, but they'll never go. They will not engage in politics. They will not build their skills. They will not educate themselves. They will not look for a job. Why? Because they're in a state of waiting to go to Europe. The aspiration to travel is not matched by the possibility to do so. So they are sitting and waiting year two. Before you know, it's 10 years. We are sitting at the campe doing nothing, wasting, not being productive to society, not being productive to yourself. I think it's time for us to really come together and see what we can do to save our country. And programs like this, obviously, I really appreciate and applaud. That is why when I was informed, I did not hesitate to come. Why? Because I think this is one of the platforms that we can use to raise issues that are pertinent to the Gambia and for its development. I thank you all, Ahmed.
Yeah, thank you very much, Dr. Ceesay, my fellow panelists, Dave and Dr. Conteh, who are permanent fixtures, and also to our esteemed viewers. I'm going to mention Sana, Salcham, Nene Frenda, and Solbaji. Unfortunately, today we have so many comments, we cannot read all of them, but we value your comments. And thank you all once again. Allah Baraka.
Thank you.